Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. I hope you have a blast. Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up, so stay tuned for that. Okay everyone, so we're going to talk about my March wrap-up. And it has not been the easiest month for me. It hasn't been the best month in terms of how much I read. There's been times where I felt a little bit of slumpy, and also there's been times where it's been very, very difficult to read. It's been kind of busy, especially this last weekend. And yeah, I'm a little bit behind. I've only read 8 books and I'm busy on my 9th. Hey, but that's okay, you're going to get months like that sometimes, and you just got to push through. Okay, let's start with what I'm busy reading right now. It's got a hell of a lot of potential, and that is Sier by Kathy Koja. Now, this is starting out to be a very weird tale. It's about this couple, I don't know if they're teenagers or young adults or whatever. It's just, her prose is so weird. But also very engaging. I'm enjoying it. All I know is that they're in like an apartment, like high up in an apartment. It's messy. There's a lot of talk about cigarettes and alcohol, and just they tried to have sex and it didn't work, and he ended up in the bathroom cuddled up in a blanket or something, and they never tried again. But she keeps coming back because there's a hole, and they call it the fun hole. It's this black hole. It's this fun hole. Down in this kind of a, I don't know what you want to call it, it's like a sort of covered space, and yeah, they're kind of obsessed with it, and it's got a very strange smell emanating from this fun hole, otherworldly kind of weird smell. I don't know too much more about this book. I've only just started reading it, but I can see I'm going to have fun with this. But the prose is something different. You might have to get used to it, but immediately I was drawn in. It's really something quite unique. So yeah, that is the Sier by Kathy Koja. Okay, next up we have the first book that I read, but DNF'd this month, and that is Ramsey Campbell, Tales of Sex and Death, Scared Stiff. And you know, to be honest with you, I wasn't in the mood. It's like kind of, I had a headache. I really want to read these Tales of Sex and Death. Bit of a headache. The prose wasn't for me, wasn't right at the time. Ramsey Campbell writes in a very kind of unique way, and it just was not in the mood for Tales of Sex and Death. Yeah, so I might pick this up again sometime, but at the moment it's shelved. Not DNF, shelved. Okay, these are going to be kind of in ascending order, from the ones I least liked to the ones I most liked. And the first book that I actually read was No One Gets Out for Free, or No One Writes for Free, by Judith Sonnet. And really, yeah, this was probably the most disturbing, sick, horrible book that I've read in my life, and I've already talked about it on this channel. And look, I gave it 3 stars because it did what it went out to do. It went out to shock and horrify, and that's what she's done. But really, if you have a problem with incredible sexual violence, like you cannot believe, then don't read this book. As simple as that. I know there's some people love it, and I might try her again one day. I've heard that there are better stories out there, but this was not for me. And yeah, that is No One Writes for Free by Judith Sonnet. Okay, next up we have the first of 2 Lovecraft stories that I read this month, and that is The Dreams in the Witch House. Now, yeah, this is probably one of my least favorite Lovecraft stories so far. It's about like kind of a student, and he's renting a room in this sort of haunted house called the Witch House, because in 1962 Salem, a witch escaped inexplicably, mysteriously. And yeah, he's in this room and he's having haunting dreams, and he's having dreams of being in some other town, It's very otherworldly, and there's this witch, and the witch is familiar, which is like a rat-like creature that gnaws at you and draws blood. And some of it's very, very creepy. But to be honest with you, it kind of, other than other Lovecraft tales that I really enjoy, it just kind of throws you into the story, and then there's all this mathematical stuff, mathematical dimensions, sort of otherworldly dimensions, and all sorts of things that are happening in the story that just confused the hell out of me. And yeah, it does progress, the plot, slowly. This guy and his dreams getting worse, but I just did not enjoy it. It was not for me. And if you hear outside noises, still Easter weekend, and I'm kind of trying to sneak this video in. So yeah, just bear with me there. And that is Dreams in the Witch House by H.P. Lovecraft. Okay, the next book I read, and now you need to understand, I absolutely love Stephen King. I think I read about 60 books, including short story collections, novels, novella collections. I've read about 60 of his works. And I went in this particular book with high expectations, and that was The Outsider by Stephen King. And it's not that I did not enjoy it. The first 100, 150 pages, even a little bit further, were incredibly suspenseful and kind of terrifying. And the story of a man who's committed this absolutely awful crime, murder, and everything, the DNA evidence, everything points towards him. He's the guilty party, but he's got a strong alibi. He's got a case that he was somewhere else at the same time. And it's a very, very interesting story, but unfortunately the halfway point it just kind of drags. And even though I love the way Stephen King talks about characters and develops characters in many of his other novels, like The Stand and It and The Shining and all sorts of other books, I did not buy into these characters as much. Besides Holly, some of the best parts in the whole novel are when Holly is introduced and she's doing it kind of thing. But a lot of the rest of it just seemed, I don't know, there were too many characters that I just couldn't get invested in, and it dragged. And by the end, yeah, the ending was pretty good, the ending was exciting, but at the end of the day I've just got to say, you know, sometimes Stephen King is going to be miss for me. He's been more hit than miss. In this particular book, it's a miss, and unfortunately that is the way the cookie crumbles. And I know that I might be talking about this book with the All About Holly group that I've been doing, but yeah, unfortunately I'm going to be the odd one out there, because this was a little bit of a miss for me. Enough to enjoy, not enough to rave about. Maybe 3 stars. Okay, my second H.P. Lovecraft story, and these are taken from my complete Lovecraft. It's on my Kindle, I'll put it up there. And this was A Thing on the Doorstep. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I actually think this is one of his better ones, not his best. Yeah, but it's about a narrator talking about a dear friend of his who falls in love or gets besotted by this woman, very strange woman, who might not be everything that she's supposed to be, and he ends up marrying her. What I love about the story is that there's hints, kind of nods towards the Shadow out of Innsmouth, one of his stories that I love, probably my favorite, this fishing village with very weird creatures. And yeah, she's very weird, and she's involved in witchcraft and magic, black magic. And there's this whole concept about taking over another person, entering them and taking over them. And it's explored in this book, and it's actually freaking terrifying, and I absolutely love the ending. So yeah, if you haven't read this particular book, that is A Thing on the Doorstep. It's got a great ending. Check it out, pick it up. Okay, another 4-star book, and this was called Of One Blood, or The Hidden Self, by Pauline Hopkins, who's an African-American writer, and this was a freaking awesome book. I'm not going to talk about the plot again because I've already reviewed it in March in an earlier video, but let's just say that there's almost like a multiple genre thing. It's kind of got a gothic feel. It's kind of like a ghost story. It's like a weird adventure story. There's all sorts of interesting racial commentary, where we come from, who we are as people, the title of One Blood, and it's very, very interesting. And yeah, the plot goes all over the place, lots of twists and turns, but for me, her absolutely gorgeous prose and her gorgeous writing kind of bring everything together, and I had a really good time, a surprisingly good time with this book. So yeah, that's Of One Blood by Pauline Hopkins. Okay, next up we had a reread for me, and that was Clive Barker, The Damnation Game. Now, the first time I read it as a teen, I gave it 5 stars. Second time now, it's still a wonderful horror novel, but I gave it 4 stars because it is a lot more slow burn and a lot more slow paced than I remembered. And there are huge sections where it kind of drags a little bit. However, it is still an amazing novel, and if you have the patience, it's a great story as well, with good characters, great characters, characters that are kind of grey, so neither good nor bad, and yeah, it's just such an interesting story. And of course, it's filled with gorgeous prose, which is typical of Clive Barker, and also some very grotesque horror imagery. And yeah, I spoke about this book already, so I told you about right at the beginning of the book, where you got this thief, and he goes into World War II, the end of World War II Poland, which is decimated. And there's some very nasty, despicable things going on there with the bored soldiers and what they do to keep themselves occupied. So yeah, I'm not going to go further into that. I highly recommend Clive Barker, and bearing in mind that this is his debut novel, it's not a bad effort at all, coming off the success of Books of Blood. Okay, my favourite book for the month, and very close to a 5-star, I think I gave it 4.5, 4 stars on Goodreads, actually probably deserves a 5-star, and it's my first exploration of Hailey Piper, and it's called Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy. I know this is a collection of short stories, and I very seldom give short stories collections 5 stars, because it's bound to be like a dud here and there. But this collection was absolutely immaculate, very, very weird, exploring all sorts of things like weird horror, sexuality, kind of identity, masculinity, femininity, and they are so diverse, these stories, and they're so original in their horror. I mean, it's almost impossible to talk about them without actually reading them yourself. 2 standouts for me were, what was it? The Burning of the Blackberries, an absolutely bizarre story about this sort of secret men's society in this kind of castle or mansion, and it's very weird. And the other one called, and it's the last story of the collection, called Recitation of the First Feeding, which is very strange. I can't even remember what the plot is about, but that story moved me. Like I say, it's a sort of book you have to go into blind, and just, it's so diverse and so unique. Every single story has a different horror to show you, something weird to show you. And she's got such a unique voice that I cannot wait to read more of Hailey Piper. And I know she's done a novel called, I think it's A Worm and His Kings, and yeah, I'm going to buy that very, very soon, because that's also very highly rated. Yeah, so that's 4.5. Hey, the more I think about it, 5 stars. Okay everyone, so that's my March wrap up. I'm hoping I managed to read more books in April, but you know what, I'm not gonna put myself down. It's quality rather than quantity sometimes. And I did discover Hailey Piper this month, so I'm very happy about that. And that was for the week of Weird, by Jason Weird Reads, and Crystal at Fiberarty. And I forgot to mention the other kind of readathons that I was doing, All About Holly. That was for Stephen King, and that is Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, and a host of others. And I'm sure there was one more. If I forgot, I'll put them all down in the dark spaces below. But in the meantime, yeah, give me a comment, tell me if you read any of those, did you enjoy them, and yeah, leave me a comment down below, and take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, and cheers.